My dad ingrained in me 3 things. 1, how you look. Number 2 is your work ethic. And number 3 was attitude. What's up, everyone? I'm so excited about this guest, Chay Lapin, my friend. What's up, man?
Nothing. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being on the podcast.
We battled the traffic. We got here.
We did battle the traffic. So to the audience that doesn't know Chay, he is a studly human being. He is an Olympian and manages a pretty robust real estate portfolio of, do we want to say?
Yeah, I would say it's funny that you asked me earlier and I'm like, I should probably know the exact number, but I mean, we're well over $1 billion with a vast majority of that being debt free.
Yeah, $1 billion portfolio. Just so impressive.
With all of our different entities that we have.
So we are absolutely going to go through the real estate stuff, but it's not all the time I get to meet or talk to an Olympian. And so, like, you water polo?
Played water polo.
Water polo.
Sport that some know and some don't.
That is so cool, man. What Olympics were you in?
So I did 2012. My goal was to do 2008, and with some injuries and just the competition, I got cut in 2008, which was a real, a couple months out from Beijing, and then kind of stuck around to hit my goal.
Were you training at Oaks Christian back then?
Yeah,
I think I remember that. You and I had actually chatted about that a while back because I was going to Oaks Christian at the time, and some of my best friends were on the water polo team at Oaks, and so some of the Olympians actually were living with them as they were going through summer training for the Olympics.
Yeah, we had host families because unfortunately we don't make any money.
Yeah.
Which is how
Oh my gosh, I forgot that you did that. Yeah.
So I was with host
cool
family
time
out there from essentially 2008 to 2012 on and off.
What was 2008 was
Beijing
and
then London.
London. Wow.
So
How cool was that?
I didn't go to Beijing, but I was with, that trained up for it and then ended up going to 2012.
Yeah.
So.
That is so cool. I mean, what an experience. I have to ask, do you have the tattoo?
I have no.
Are you going to ever get it?
I just don't know where I'd put it. I don't have anything against it. And other than now, I think it's too late to get it because people might go, "Oh, you're just trying to show off,"
Yeah, yeah, man, that's so cool.
You're old now and you want to revitalize yourself. I don't know.
What was from that experience in London? Looking back on it, like, what were some of the highlights?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about our sport, so water polo specifically, is we're one of the few sports. There might only be one or maybe 2 other sports that literally competes from opening ceremonies to closing ceremonies. So
oh wow, so that's like what, 2-3 weeks?
2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so we essentially play a day, get a day off, play a day, get a day off, through the 2 weeks. With that said, so we don't get the same Olympic experience as someone going and competing for 3, 4, 5 days, and then they get to enjoy, being an Olympian and going to all the fun sponsorship parties and things like that. So we were ready to go home when we finished. It was a great experience, but it's exhausting because we're basically high stress for 2 straight weeks.
Yeah.
They gave us an option at the end, like, you can stay, they'll pay for it, and our whole team basically was like, nope, we're going home.
So you went all the way to the end.
Yeah.
So you guys, did you place?
We didn't medal, but you still play out. We got kicked out in the quarterfinals by Croatia, who ended up going on winning. But you have to play out your like the top, I forget, 7 or 8 teams continue to play out for placement because that helps for rankings going forward.
Was that hard? Like,
yeah,
once once
you're
were,
kicked out,
yeah.
I think we played 2 more games. Everybody's checked out.
Yeah.
On both sides, the other team too. So it becomes a little like, I wouldn't say dangerous, but everybody, everybody's, they're willing to punch or do whatever.
Yeah.
But no, it was great.
Yeah. I never played water polo, but some of my friends did, and it's a pretty intense sport in the water. Like, it's aggressive.
Yeah. I was a goalkeeper, so I wasn't in there punching people, but yeah, there are certain positions that are very much very aggressive. My wife was actually a center,
Oh, wow.
So,
Kim.
Yeah, she played at UCLA.
I did not know that.
Yeah. That's how we met. But yeah, for the field players, it's almost identical positions as basketball. Like there's a center, there's forwards essentially, point guard type position. But yeah, no, for my position, it's more mental and kind of quarterbacking the defense.
Okay, so this is something I feel like a lot of us have heard about, but none of us have experienced it, given that I'm not an Olympian, right? I don't really know many Olympians besides you. What are the dorms like? I hear it's just like crazy. Like it's a crazy party after you finish. Is that kind of true? Is that what it's like?
Yeah, everybody thinks I'm just saying no comment when I say I don't really know, because we compete the entire 2 weeks straight.
So yeah, you're not partaking.
So another thing too, I think there's probably a level of that.
Debauchery and just
not
partying.
as much in the U.S. buildings. We all stay in our own dormitories. I think there's a lot of other countries. This is like their gateway to like just experience something so amazing. They're coming from third world countries. You have to understand the village, I think, has like 13 or 15,000 athletes from around the world. And a vast majority of those are not top, coming from a top tier country where they've been supported and all that. So when they get there after they're done with their games, they're taking advantage of every aspect of the, what's provided. Most of that stuff's off campus though. Like Nike will throw a party, at a hotel in London and, all that kind of stuff. But I do think, people have fun.
Yeah. I mean, rightfully so, right? Like it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Okay. So, Olympian, right? In commercial real estate or, overseeing a very large portfolio, but let's take a step back, right? Like, let's talk about like the upbringing, like kind of how we got to where we are today. Where did you grow up?
So I effectively grew up in Cyprus. It's where my grandparents and my mom grew up. And I, for the most part, grew up in my mom's house that she grew up in.
Wow.
Because, eventually my parents got divorced. She got remarried in another divorce, but my grandparents were very much involved in babysitting us always because my mom had to work, 2 jobs to support us. And that's where I fell into water polo through that process. I would never played any other sports, believe it or not.
You didn't?
No, I never played like AYSO or T-ball or...
What drew you to water polo, or what drew mom to wanting to put you into water polo?
I believe the story is my mom was going to sign us up for junior lifeguards one summer and finally saved up the money to do that. And she was late and it filled up. And the junior lifeguard people were like, oh, why don't you go play this sport water polo? Because they were all water polo guys. Mm-hmm. That's literally how I fell into it. So that was like 5th grade or so and fell into water polo and then never stopped.
Wow.
But I was in a system. I was very, very fortunate in Long Beach at the time was where the U.S. team, the Olympic team, was doing a lot of their training. We had, from my club team, a lot of Olympians, like alumni, that came and coached us. So I was very much in a serious program unintentionally, but that's kind of where I fell.
And you didn't get into sports till 5th grade?
5th grade-ish, yeah.
Wow. And the audience doesn't know this, but you are 6'5".
Yeah.
Is mom or dad tall?
Yeah, my mom's 6 feet.
And
dad's probably right around there, 6'2".
And so none of them had a background in swim, sports, or
they were like
water
beach
polo?
volleyball, surfer.
Wow.
My dad was a surfer, so yeah.
So got into water polo in 5th grade. And then did you instantly love it? You're like, okay, I want to keep doing this. Was there something about it that you were what made you really want to lean into the sport the way that you did?
I think for me, when I look back, I'm not saying I completely recognize this in the moment, but for me, it provided a sense of community. Not my mother's fault by any means, but she was working full time. She was actually a sign language interpreter. So my grandparents were deaf. Majority of my whole mom's side of the family is deaf.
Wow.
So we were the only hearing ones from that side. So she did sign language interpreting at jails a lot of times at night. So she worked the graveyard shift. But going back, it kind of gave me a sense of community as the oldest child. I got attracted to how close-knit the water polo community was. Mm-hmm. And all the parents, they would come pick me up, take me to dinner with them. It just gave me exposure to kind of stability is probably why I was attracted to it, because I didn't have the complete stability at home.
Yeah, that makes sense. I noticed that myself with sports growing up. It was like having a community and like having kind of something where I could step away from what was going on in my life, where I could just like be so present in sports. Like that was like a little bit of a safe haven for me at times.
Yeah. And this particular sport historically is an affluent sport.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't come from money.
Water polo is known as an affluent sport.
At least back when I was playing. A lot of the families are from Orange County or like where the stronghold, like
for sure.
Palo Alto.
But when you think about it from a European standpoint, it's not a really affluent sport. It's like Croatians will just go out into the ocean and like set lines up and start playing. Or not even set lines up. They'll just start playing.
So that gave me kind of an exposure. I was one of the first ones to go to college too, out of both my mom and dad's side. But I was able to see that through these affluent families, and I just knew and dreamed through them. Like, oh, this is where I want to be. I was very much like, we were talking before about the movie Dumb and Dumber, but there's lots of silly movies like that with Chris Farley and all of those. And I'd always watch those as kids and just be like the dreamer. Like, I can do that. I take the risk, and I lived through other people, I guess, is kind of looking back at it.
Where did that come from?
I don't know, because not all my brothers and sisters are like that. They're all doing very well, but not in the same like dreamy aspect. So I don't know. I think you're just kind of born with a gift.
Yeah.
And I think I was, the gift for me was just patience. And we were talking before about like living through, I guess, patience and forgiveness, because that's what ultimately gets you through chaotic situations. Because you can forgive someone and it doesn't affect you at the same level if you're truly giving, not just like, oh, I accept your apology to get past something difficult, but I truly do forgive certain situations in my life, which I think has allowed me to move forward. And then I've had patience through difficult stuff. So I think those are my gifts. I think God gives you gifts, and I definitely have some that I'm not strong in, right? That my wife would say.
Yeah, well, that's amazing gifts to have, right? Forgiveness, patience, like all of those things, but also too, man, like to get to the level that you got to through water polo, right? Best in the world as an Olympian. Was it like your athletic ability that got you there? Was it discipline? Was it a chip on your shoulder? Like, what do you think was kind of driving you to like want to lean into this sport, but in a way that like you're excelling or like almost like an outlier in the sport itself?
Some of it might sound cliche, but definitely discipline plays into the picture. I wouldn't say I was the best, even the best in my position. There was plenty of people through like when I finally got to college and getting exposed to like all the other people in my, being a goalkeeper, other goalkeepers, there was plenty of people at my level and or even better. And so I think when you're creating a team, it's not always about the best athlete. And I think it's, who's going to jive well in the group. Obviously I was good. I'm not saying that I didn't have a talent, but I think what got me to that talent or brought the talent out was just willing to do stuff and not complain. I remember being on time, it's the hard work. And, I tell our young people now in our company, and I'll say the line wrong, but, a lot of success comes from luck. You were at the right place at the right time, right? You're only going to get to the right place in the right time if you put the reps out and you actually put yourself out there. And that's what the big thing that misses in people that are very talented that don't ever hit it. Or maybe you don't have this extraordinarily, like I was never smart in school. I was never getting huge internships at Goldman Sachs and all this, big investment banking firms. I just kind of went along and then boom, fast forward 15 plus years later, we're kind of at the pinnacle of that world.
Yeah.
And it's just, we put ourselves out there.
Yeah.
And don't complain.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing you say is you've been consistent throughout the process. And that's what you're like telling, some of the guys that work with you or work for you, the younger guys, is like, be consistent and, hopefully you're like lucky in the process. But if you are consistent, like you're more likely to be lucky.
Absolutely. And even in sports, like I remember I put myself on the line after I got cut in 2008, and then I was finishing college. So essentially, once you finish college with water polo, there's nowhere
done.
else to go. You're
Yeah,
done.
it's done. Yeah.
There's no pro leagues here. And so I had to make that decision in 2009. Do I go into the workforce, move on with my life, don't achieve the goal, or do I take the risk, get behind career-wise, but take the risk? And I remember leading up to 2012, and we're in the Olympic year, and we got to this point where there's 2 tournaments left. 2 big tournaments, one really big because it was like World Championships, which only happens every 2 years or something like that. It's like World Cup for water polo, and I didn't get invited to that. It was the other keeper, because they take 2 keepers on each rotation, and I was like, I'm not going to make the Olympic team. I just wasted the entire 4 years, and I just was like, I guess I'll show back up and just be the practice dummy, because you need 3 goalies for the 3 or 4 for practice. And I stuck with it, and then I got invited to the next tournament, and then I made the team. But you could easily go the wrong way.
Yeah.
Right? I could easily just quit through it. And I saw people do that. There were some other guys who were field players who didn't make that same cut, and they moved on. They could have been in my spot. I don't know. But
Yeah. You'll never know, right? You just got to
know.
keep showing up.
Yeah. You don't want regrets. We've all had them. I've had them.
Yeah.
But I think you just don't want to. You want to limit that.
Yeah, that's what haunts you, right?
Yeah.
Like the regrets. But that's such a cool moment for you, right? Of like, you had a goal, and we haven't even gotten through college, but you had a goal, right, of being an Olympian. Unfortunately, it didn't go the way you wanted. You got released or cut, and then you were at like kind of a crossroads of like, do I keep pursuing this dream, or do I pivot and get into the working world? And I think a lot of people probably, or at least if I was in your shoes, I could see a lot of people in my community being like, hey, like you were an Olympian practice player. Like, this is great. Like, you played in college. Like, you've done really, really great, Chay. Like, maybe it's time to like lean into the professional world. And like that, you could definitely go that route. But something inside of you is like, no, I don't want to lean into that. Like, I want to pursue this dream. And like, good on you, because it's like a complete risk, right? Of like rolling the dice and going for another 4 years of training and eating right and doing all the things you have to do to be that caliber of Olympian. But I just think about like how that decision, right, to take a chance on yourself, to be consistent, to be disciplined, to go for it again in 2012, how that might have given you like momentum or like inspiration after that was done to kind of lean into this next chapter of basically being an entrepreneur and running your own company. Right? Like, cause you proved to yourself that like, you can do what it takes to like roll the dice and make the team the second go around. So almost like, did that give you confidence, right? To go like take a shot in starting your own company?
It did. Per se. I wouldn't, and to back up a little bit, I think that I've always wanted to do stuff with people. So I've never had the intention to go out, create my own thing. I know things have evolved into I'm a part of something big, but I just wanted to be a good team player and be with the best of the best. And so even with like what I'm doing now and what we've evolved on the portfolio side, it didn't start out that way. I came on with what I thought the best of the best was, which was Dwight, who now ultimately is my partner on that side.
Yeah.
But I wasn't coming on with the intention like learn from Dwight
and then go do your own
and
thing.
then go do my own thing.
No.
I always wanted to be with somebody. And I think that a lot of people in today's world, it's instant success, right? Like you go work somewhere and then now I get it. If you worked somewhere for 10 years or something like that, like, you figure it out and you break off or whatever. But I think sticking with people, putting your head down, not wanting to be the glory.
Yeah,
for
sure. For sure.
And I'm just naturally, I'm not saying that in a cocky way, but naturally I don't need the glory.
Yeah, that's cool.
I just want to. Yeah,
because I think a lot of people kind of pursue that glory, but I think in regards to your situation, and I am fortunate enough to like know you and Dwight, like you met an amazing partner, right?
Absolutely.
Like you met and that is like, if you are going to go into business with someone or you are going to team with someone, like make sure like you do your homework and your due diligence to like you're getting in this partnership with the right person. And Dwight is like an incredible man, you know?
Yeah, no, I got very, very lucky in that standpoint.
And what you guys have built is truly amazing. And I want to go into that. But before we go into that, so going back, right? So like you're excelling in water polo. I have to imagine all through high school. Where did you end up going to college?
UCLA.
UCLA, that's right. That's where you met Kim. Sorry.
Yeah.
So you play water polo at UCLA. How'd you guys do against USC when you were there?
Lost every single time. It's funny, my whole sporting career, I don't have any glory of winning anything.
I mean, but you're an Olympian, so that's pretty cool. That's really, really cool. If it makes you feel any better, when I was at SC playing baseball, we didn't win anything. So, you know, like.
But it was still great.
The only thing I have is like a framed jersey, you know, from my days of being an athlete there. But it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade anything, but we didn't win anything either. I actually think we played, funny enough, we played UCLA at Dodger Stadium and lost.
Yeah.
We played the series against UCLA, lost.
But USC, not that we're getting on this tangent, but their coach there, Jovan, was just an amazing coach.
Yeah, what's going on with him now? Didn't he get fired for all the...
Got caught up in the scandal.
Yeah.
And I think not at the same degree as others.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know enough to be dangerous, but
I
know that he's a great person, and he put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into
that
those
program?
players and that program. And that's why they were as successful as they were.
I mean, maybe one of the greatest dynasties of all time.
Yeah.
You know what's hilarious about that, Chay, is so the baseball stadium is right next to the pool.
Yeah.
And so, like, I lived in a tower called Fleur Tower, which is like where the water polo and baseball team was. And I would have to go out my building, and right there was the pool and where all the water polo players were playing. And then in right field, there was this like secret fence that only the baseball players knew that's how you got into the stadium without going all the way around. But we would have to get up for like morning practice, and you would just hear this guy with this heavy accent screaming at these guys. And you're like, whoa, that coach is intense.
Very much.
Yeah. I mean, but like, look what he was able to build, right, from a team standpoint.
Yeah. If he was still there, I guarantee you they would be winning every year.
Okay, so that brings up another question I have. Like, looking back at the coaches that you had, like, some of the best coaches, what did they do?
So I had great coaches even at UCLA, and the funny story there is actually in Long Beach, where I grew up, there was a guy named Adam Wright, who eventually became one of my head coaches at UCLA. He was, I think, a player at UCLA during that time, but he was, alumni of our club, and he would come and mentor us. He was on the national team. That was one guy that I would look up to and be like, oh, I want to go down his path. Mm-hmm. And he was very much involved with us, even when he was in college, young kids. And so he was the guy, and another guy, Tony Azevedo, who also was from Long Beach, who's one of the best players in the world. And so both Long Beach kids looked up to them. Adam went to UCLA, Tony went to Stanford. But fast forward, I became teammates with them because they were both four-time Olympians at the time, so they just stayed around forever. Uh-huh. So they were way older than me. But it was just funny. The people I looked up to, I became teammates with, and then also Adam Wright had become one of my head coaches at UCLA, and so it's just kind of this full circle. And I remember I took Adam Wright to because I had 2 tickets, and I was like, who to the World Series when the Angels were in, and I was like, who should I take? I don't even
when they were playing the Giants.
The Giants, yeah.
Oh, I went to that series as well. Wow.
I went to the last game, and I don't know baseball. I didn't even follow sport. I still don't follow sports. But I was like, who could I take? And I was like, I'm going to take that Adam Wright guy. And so I called his parents. I was like, what's Adam's number? And I was like 13 or something. And
That's
he
cool.
was still at UCLA. He came down, picked me up, and we went. And but it's just kind of a full circle moment. But I had really good mentors like that. And they were just good people overall. It wasn't just about they were good coaches.
Yeah.
They made sure we kept our head on straight. And so it's good.
What can you think about specifically, like what they did? Was it more of just like an interest in you, kind of looking out for you?
Yes, very much. Like if we were, and Adam knew, we had 2 Adams, and Adam Krikorian, also an amazing coach. But they looked out for us. They were tough, for sure. But if we were, veering off a path in college, going to too many parties or something like. I mean, they knew everything. All the coaches know, but they legitimately not just punish us, but like pull us aside. Like, you got to stop that.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to be successful in life, you got to stop that.
Yeah.
Just all the John Wooden stuff. You
Yeah.
know,
that makes such a difference at that time, you know, because you're like,
you can really go off the beaten path.
you can go off the beaten path. It's very easy, especially because you're exposed to so much in college.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the first time I got in at USC, and I went to my first like fraternity party, and I remember like looking left and right and being like, where are the grown-ups? Like, it was just like crazy, you know, it was just like wild.
Yeah.
And I was like thinking to myself, like, okay, there has to be like someone like overseeing this, like some like elder figure that's going to make sure that like everything's under control. And it's like, no, this is just like 18 to 22 year olds that are doing whatever they want. And it's you got to be careful, right?
Yeah.
Like, because it's easy to kind of go down the wrong path. And I saw it with some of my friends of just like too much access.
Totally. My blessing in disguise, and I'm not going to say I would go down the wrong path or not, I wouldn't know, but my blessing in disguise was, I think around junior year in high school, I was training with the senior national team. So with the Olympic team, I was not going to make the team, but I was on their training roster, which put us on drug testing with the USOC. And so all my latter end of high school, where you might get into a lot of trouble, going to all the parties, I wouldn't go to a single one. And then getting exposed to like drugs and stuff in college, I wasn't doing it because I had a moral compass. I'd just be like, I don't want to be drug tested.
Yeah.
And lose my spot on the team.
Yeah.
And the USOC would literally show up and drug test you on the spot. I got drug tested at a Laker game when I was just there. They show up, or they call you, and you have to be like within a certain time frame of them, or you have to tell them you're leaving the zone, and show up, drug testing me there. So I was always scared to death to even expose myself to that kind of world. Yeah. So I had an excuse though too from peer pressure, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't do it.
Yeah. What would you give if you were to give any advice to parents that have like a son or a daughter that's trying to be an elite athlete or a water polo player? Like, what would you say to them?
So I would say that, and it's tough in today's world because it's much more competitive for kids in sports than even when we were playing. And so I would say that that helicopter parenting definitely doesn't work for the vast majority. Let your kids do their thing. Create discipline, right? Don't miss a practice. If you sign up for something, don't miss it, right? I was coaching to make money through college, and right after college, while I was training for the Olympics, I coached high school kids at a club to make money. And I saw that all the time, like either too much pressure on the kid and they break, or you sign a kid up and you let them do whatever they want, right? They paid their $500 to be a part of the club, and they only come to one of practice a week because they were too tired, or they were. So there's a balance of staying on your kid.
That's kind of what I'm hearing you say. It's a little bit of a balance.
Like, my mom would never let me skip a practice because she paid for it, and we were already struggling financially. So I just was like, I can't skip I'm sick or whatever. I'm not skipping a practice. I don't think I missed a single practice ever from just being sick.
Really?
Yeah. And
I can't say the same.
And so
which is why one of us, I mean, for many reasons, became Olympian. The other one didn't.
Yeah.
I was skipping practices when I was sick.
And some of it's obvious. Like, your kids can be talented or not, and if they're not, I don't know if you should force them to do all the private lessons and all that stuff. You know, they have a talent somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, I'm going to let my kids do it they want, and just whatever they choose, at least for that season. Yeah. You're going to commit to it, and then when you're done, if you didn't like it, move on. You know, do something else.
For sure, I think that's a big thing. I think about is like seeing it through.
Yeah, exactly.
And then like for me growing up, and I recently talked about this with someone else, but like my dad ingrained in me 3 things. He's like, Sean, you can control 3 things in life, but specifically in sports. And it was 1, how you look, like how you like is your jersey clean, like are you taking care of yourself? So how you look. Number 2 is your work ethic, which he like really was like emphasized, like you show up and you work hard. And number 3 was attitude. It was like, those are the 3 things that you can control. Everything else you can't control, but like you can control like your attitude, like what type of teammate you are. Like you can control how hard you're working. And then number 3, like how you look, like how you're showing up.
Yep.
I mean, sometimes like as a kid, you don't have complete control over like how you look, right? Because sometimes it comes down to like your parents and
absolutely,
all that stuff. But I think the big ones are those 2, work ethic and attitude.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a part of like now with the company that you run with Dwight? Like, I have to imagine there's a huge emphasis on recruiting like people with the right attitude, right work ethic. Like, what do you guys look for with your team?
Yeah, you definitely apply those things. Sometimes you just don't know, right? When you're hiring someone's interviewing, they're going to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Everyone we hire, and luckily, knock on wood, everybody's been great overall. We all have areas that we need to improve on, and as leaders like Dwight and I, we have to figure out how to make someone tick. Well, we can't just let them, be lazy or not work hard. But at the end of the day, what we look for someone is not necessarily where they went to school or what their background was or anything along those lines, pedigree. We just want someone who's going to come in and put the time in, take the risk, and if you fail, you fail. And we're also learning every time. Like, I can't really tell you at this point. I mean, we've taken a lot of our growth over the years has been natural. So we've kind of just been going. Dwight and I are very much involved in the companies, doing a lot of the stuff, and then someone would show up to the table. Oh, great. They seem great. Let's hire them. Only in the last 2 to 3 years, we've realized, okay, we're at that point now where we need to go out and recruit to build this team. We can't just wait for the next person to show up. That'll happen again, but we can't just wait. So it's been a learning curve for us. Like, we know we want someone like ourselves who's a perfectionist, works hard. That's hard to recreate.
Do you think of yourself as a perfectionist?
I wouldn't say I was like, Dwight's definitely a perfectionist in a good way. So he kind of carries that in the business really well for us, like on just, compliance and legality and all that kind of stuff. And I'm definitely a perfectionist in my discipline for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be given your background. Okay, but for the audience so we talked about how you guys have like over $1 billion, right, under management with your real estate assets. But like for someone who doesn't know what you do, how would you explain it to them?
So we structure different types of real estate offerings, or some people call them funds or syndications, or there's different terminology out there. But ultimately, we're either creating a fund that has a target of buying X type of property.
When you say X, are you talking
X,
about
like a industrial property,
industrial, apartment building, like all different types of real estate asset classes being the X?
Yeah, exactly. And then and we've done where we found our bread and butter is we do single asset deals, or maybe there's 2 properties in a portfolio, and we structure them in a way where we can raise cash investments from investors, but we can also take 1031 exchange equity, which for people that don't know what a 1031 exchange is, it's just something in the tax code where if you sell an investment property and you had a gain on it, you bought it for $2 million, now you're selling it for $3 million, that $1 million is going to be taxed pretty heavily, probably for most people.
On long-term capital gains.
Could be long-term, yeah.
Which is what, by the way, 20%. And then here in the state of California, you have another 14%.
And then there's a recapture tax on your depreciation, which oftentimes hits people really hard because they've accelerated it or they've owned it for a long time. And so when all that's combined, especially if you're from California or a high tax state, you're at 40+% that you're losing.
Yeah.
And so you can then take that gain or that whole property, you sold it for $3 million, and buy a fresh property and avoid paying tax within some guidelines and rules. And so we've targeted that niche because people need to, or they don't want to pay taxes if they don't have to.
But at some point, they probably will have to pay the piper. It's just when they're out of real estate and they want to have that liquidity like in the bank, right?
If they want liquidity, or they just live off the rental income and pass it to their heirs.
Yeah.
And in that point, they will get a step up in basis.
Yeah. But you guys, from my understanding, Chay, you guys have a bit of a unique model. And yes, what you do is a bit of a niche. But like you also have an interesting relationship with debt.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. So most real estate operators out there, not saying it's a negative thing, but I would say probably 80+% of operators, especially in our world or the institutional world, they're utilizing debt to acquire property, which is a fine strategy. For us, we wanted to be a little bit different, and through just kind of talking to investors over the years prior to us kind of launching our own product, because to rewind a little bit, we raise money for other operators as well. It's not just ourselves. So we almost act as like in a way, an outsourced capital markets desk for other sponsors or institutions.
So they would do this because they want to diversify their portfolio, right? Like they're making their own investments, but then they come across your investments and they're like, oh, this is an organization that has a lot of success and they aren't going to be putting debt. And so it's like low risk for them.
It's low risk. And also a lot of our investors are at the end of their career or getting close to retirement, and they don't want to take on that level of risk anymore.
Yeah.
So,
because like if you buy a property, you don't have any debt on it. There's really there's not a ton of.
You avoid the catastrophic
risk. Yes.
The losing it to the lender or the fire sale of the asset at the wrong time.
But it creeps into your returns to a certain degree. It can.
Nowadays, our deals are higher cash flow because debt is so expensive. So it's kind of reversed a little bit. But yeah, historically, you're going to get a higher cash flow because you were leveraging or you're creating that arbitrage.
Mm-hmm.
You also leverage the total return on the back end. But these people are usually already very wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to take that level of risk. That'd be you or I. Personally, I use debt.
Yeah.
On a lot of the stuff that I do personally.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's almost like, hey, I've reached a point in life where I just don't want to lose it. Like exactly. I don't have to have home runs or doubles. Like I can just hit singles, and that's totally fine.
Well, I'll tell you right now, institutionally, a big reason why you use debt is not just to get higher cash flows for investors or higher returns for investors. It's because how do institutions make money? They make money by assets under management.
Yeah.
So if I took the $1 billion+ that we've done across our different real estate structures and entities, and I had just used conservative leverage, 50-60%, I would have over a $2 billion portfolio right now, which would mean my fees were twice as much as they are right now. And then you fast forward, and I'm looking at total returns that these institutions are selling deals right now because their loans are coming due. They're not that far off or even sometimes lower than our debt-free returns right now. So obviously, we still have risk in the debt-free model. It's just substantially less.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, Chay, from your perspective, if you were giving someone, and I think we have to be careful with the word advice, but if we were giving someone like recommendations on like how to structure their investment portfolio or their finances, or like how to set their life up from a financial standpoint, like what recommendations would you give?
And you're assuming I'm talking to a younger person?
Yeah. So, because I think it's different, right? Like you're going after family offices, people worth hundreds of millions of dollars, right? But someone who's like, I'm trying to get there, right? Like I'm driven, I'm ambitious, I have goals, and they're setting themselves up. Like, what recommendations would you give to them?
So, it's a great question. And I don't give tax or legal advice.
Yeah, I know. We have to say that.
But
it's just so funny that we have to say that.
But the vast majority of people we deal with, like you said, they're already established people.
Yeah.
So
so what are you seeing from them, I guess, would be one of my questions.
But I think your question's great because I think as a younger person, like you're coming out of college and you really need to know, outside of that luck I was talking about earlier, it's going to take you till 35 plus years old before you get into any type of like what you feel is success in the career world.
Yeah.
Unless you're one of those few people who come out with the big investment banking job or the big law job. But those are the anomalies, right? It's only a couple % of people who get those. So for the normal people like us, your best investment, even as you're making money in your 20s, like you're doing well, you're making your six figures, and you have excess money, and you're thinking, what do I do with this money? For me, your best investment is in yourself. And you don't get distracted or style drift because you have a little bit extra money to go invest and do something. Keep that. I mean, even if you had $100,000 and you go invest in something, what is that really going to make you? Even if you kill an extra 30 grand, but you risked 100 grand and you're young, no, keep it. And because you might need that money when you start your own business. You might, or your wife's going to start a business, or your girlfriend, whatever. And so those reserves, I think, are very important to give you the flexibility to make decisions, or when you get fired or the economy turns on you. But your best investment's in yourself, and how you make that investment in yourself is working hard, taking risk on opportunities. Don't just go for the highest paying job. Usually the highest paying job is going to kind of stay there. There's not a lot of, when I say highest paying, like the salary jobs.
Yeah.
Take risk while you're young on those like jobs that have huge bonus structures or commission structures, because you can afford that. I worked even with Dwight when I came on board with Dwight, and we were even doing really well in the front end of our careers. I still worked a coaching job to bring in a little extra money for security, because I was taking risk on basically 100% commission at the time. And I also lived in an apartment building where I was the manager, so I lived there for free. And I did that all the way, even when we were like ultra successful, and I like had money to buy a house.
Yeah.
And I've always had that scarcity mindset in a way. But yeah, it's investing in yourself, whatever that means to you. But invest in yourself. Don't invest in anybody else yet until you establish yourself.
Yeah.
Because there's no get rich quick schemes.
No, there's not. And if anyone's trying to sell you a get rich quick scheme, you need to be very careful.
Yeah.
And I'm okay saying this. Like I've done a few things where I got initially in the working world, and as you know, tenant representation. And so I'm working with these like fast growing companies and these like visionary CEOs and founders, and they have like, they're the next supposedly unicorn. And they were like, Sean, do you want to get in friends and family? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting in like with the next like Uber or like, Google or Facebook. Like at the time early on in my career, I thought they were. And then like you get in, which I'm like so grateful that some of these people let me into it, but I basically was just like throwing money down the drain, because it's like, it's so hard to be like an investor and to like invest in the right things. And so as I've gotten older, I've actually taken a little bit of I've changed my tune a bit where I'm like, I don't need to hit home runs anymore. Like I don't need to like swing for the fences, which early on in my career, I think I was like putting money into these companies thinking like, oh, I'm going to like be like angel investor and hit it big. But it's like, okay, VCs, who are like some of the smartest people in the world, that this is all they do. They will like invest in 20 companies and then one of them hits it
really
big.
Consistent.
And so like, to your point, I think my money would have been so much better just like if I would have just slow and steady, probably invested into an index fund or like myself. Yeah. So I think that's like really great advice. And the other thing I'm like taking from you is like, even when money started coming in, like you still were acting in a way where you were scrappy.
Absolutely. Live below your means.
Yeah, way below your means. Yeah, for sure.
So I think
which is hard to do in like a flashy, like to a certain degree, I think where we live, like in Los Angeles as a whole, like it's flashy. It can be like materialistic. And so you have advertisements and like all these things in front of you that you like need more and more and more. Yeah. So it's easy to kind of get caught up in like, man, I need like I want a new watch or like a new car. But like to your point, like be scrappy and live way below your means, because like the cool thing, Einstein talks about this, like compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world, right? So instead of going to go buy that nice car or like that nice watch, like if you put that away correctly, like 10, 20, 30 years from now, like that money that you put away is very meaningful in life.
I don't know where I heard this, but I think, and also you don't want to be, don't don't be scared of money or scared of success or feel guilty of making money and buying that nice thing. Like there's a place for it.
Totally.
It's just within your means, right? You're the only one who knows if it's within your means. And don't worry about judgment if you go buy a nice thing. But someone had told me, I only listened to this somewhere like in the last couple of years, that make a goal. And if you're married or have a girlfriend or something, do it with them where, and I'm guilty, I didn't do this yet, but it was a really good idea. But because you're working hard, right?
Yeah.
And it'll put a strain on your relationship when you're out having to go to meetings, having to go to dinners, having to travel. And especially once you start a family, it can create tension. And so you need to start making goals together and go, you know what? When I hit this sales volume, you, wife, girlfriend, whoever, significant other, you're going to buy this. What was that dream thing? Oh, that watch. You're going to buy that watch.
That's cool.
Or we're going to go on this vacation.
Yeah.
And you set not a lofty goal, something that you're going to have success on so you're not failing and not ever accomplishing it. So that way it kind of resets. Like you get the nice thing, you do the nice trip, and then you reset. And now you're going to be supportive of each other, right? When you have to go out to a fancy dinner and you really don't want to be there and your wife's home with the kids or vice versa, if she's doing that, but you know you're collectively doing it for like a goal, I think is something I heard that is a good idea to keep you like the fire under you. Because that's the hardest thing too when you get successful, is keeping the fire under you to keep going.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like you guys are making team goals, right? Like, hey, what are our goals together? And then you're kind of pulling on the same side of the rope. And then once you achieve that, it's like, okay, you guys both are having the upside.
Yeah, and if it is something materialistic that you buy, you'll remember it if you have the nice watch. You're like, that was because I hit this sale. That was my accomplishment. That year.
Absolutely. And if I was coming across as in like, I don't think you should buy those types of things, that's not what I was saying at all. I was more referencing you should not try to keep up with the Joneses just to keep up with the Joneses.
Absolutely.
And so like there is a huge difference in my opinion of like someone that can afford it and someone who's just like trying to keep up an image.
Absolutely.
Of they have something they don't.
Which is tough in areas like LA or New York or something like that. But yeah, I think, success is really fun and it's really hard. Yeah. And you're going to have your ups and downs. Yeah. I mean, last 2 years for anybody probably in any investment world, there's ups and downs, right?
Yeah, it's like
there's people in my world, I'm not going to name off, like if they were in my office or in my, exposure, but you could tell the people who were keeping up with the Joneses, they made very good money in the last, like COVID till 2023, but they also spent everything. Yeah. And overspent or whatever it was, and now they're fine, they're probably gonna be fine, but you could see they're in their eyes, they're scared, they're stressed, and what's that doing? They can't break out of it. They can't, and as the market comes back, it's gonna be really hard for them to get that snowball going again.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing too that's like just been so crazy for me, and I don't think I've talked about this on the podcast, but I was like talking with ChatGPT, or I was looking at data, and I was curious. I'm like, I wonder what you had to make pre-COVID to be in the top 1%. And the data came back, and it was like kind of all within the same range of like high 3s, low 4s. So like 395 or like 400,000, like you're in the 1 percentile of the nation, right? And then you take a look at what you need to make now, and it's basically double. It's like $700,000 to be in the top 1%, which is crazy that like over the course of like 3, 4, 5 years, inflation has gotten so crazy that like you almost need to make double. So it's just kind of wild to think about of like inflation plays into all this as well, right? If 100%. You're making 150 to 200 grand in 2017, 18, 19, that's a lot different than you making that type of money in this like right now. Yeah, by the way, both are great. Like, don't get me wrong. That's a good amount of money to be making that. The like six figures, but I think like understanding this, and you kind of brought something up, which I totally agree with, is like, don't be afraid to talk about money, because I think money it's a language in it itself. And I didn't grow up in a family where we talked about money. Like that wasn't really something we discussed. And as I started like reading more and more and having conversations with a lot of different people who I admired and looked up to, like they would talk about money with me. And then I quickly started to understand that like the more you talk about it, the more you understand something. And the more you understand it, the more you like are able to make kind of wise decisions when it comes to those specific types of things. And so now, like I actually like really try to talk, not in a way where it's like flashy or I never want to make anyone feel uncomfortable, but like I'm always open to talking about these types of things because I think like that's how we like grow and that's how we like learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I don't think there's anything bad. And I guess like if I was to give any recommendation, have you heard of The Psychology of Money, the book?
No.
Oh, it's such a good book.
I need to be a reader.
Yeah, it's such a good book.
I have a lot of books in the Audible, but I just never listened to them.
Yeah, Psychology of Money was like borderline life-changing for me.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what the book's about, but I do know there's people, because I've had a fun way to watch like certain people that we've hired where they might have been afraid of money or they didn't come from money.
Yeah.
And they get a little taste and they're even afraid of that. It's like, is this bad?
You
know, like, because there's a world out there where making money is a bad thing. And it's looked down upon. And, but some of our most successful people have come from that world, and it's fun to see them break out of it.
Yeah. Well, money's cool in that like it brings out in you what you already were, right? Like to a certain degree. And what I mean by that is like a generous person who starts making more money is likely just going to be more generous, right? Mm-hmm. A greedy person or like a person who's super selfish, like they make more money, they're probably just going to keep being more and more greedy and selfish. So I think like sometimes money brings out in things, brings things out in people that was already like in them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be greedy.
Yeah, don't be greedy. Yeah. Don't be selfish.
It'll get you.
And money's like a tool too. Like money can solve problems, but I don't think it's the end all be all, which I know is probably something you and I hold to be true, where it's like you need to be very careful not to make money your idol and like your everything in life.
Yeah. Don't be a waste in society. Like everybody has a skill, whether they've discovered it or not. But they will only discover it by, again, going back to working hard.
Yeah.
And money will come with that. If you're going to work hard with your skill, at least some level of money will come that you'll be comfortable with. You know, obviously certain careers don't offer a huge thing, but hopefully you're doing it because you love it and you've made at least the pinnacle within that.
Yeah. Shay, I'm curious to know your response to the life advice to follow your passion. Do you agree?
To follow your passion.
When it comes to your career?
I 50% agree with that. Because I do think there's a balance of, even once you get in a career, you're always going to have monotonous days. Like it's not exciting, right? You could destroy your passion it depends what the passion is. You probably could destroy it.
Yeah.
My passion is never real estate. I like the group. I like the challenges. I like kind of the no ceiling aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. And I have to imagine you've grown to love it to a certain degree.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I'm just saying I didn't dive into it because it was my passion.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like what I've learned is you start to love things when you're good at them. Not always, but a lot of times in life when we're good at something, we usually start to really enjoy it. And so like if you're someone who doesn't necessarily know what their passion is, or you're trying to figure out like what to do, like lean into things that you're naturally good at, and maybe you don't love it right away, but you'll start to love it as you become more and more successful.
Yeah. Sometimes I look at passion as like something you're doing in life outside of your work. Like you're volunteering here or there, where I see people that it can be dangerous, or I've witnessed where people, follow your passion and say they get into nonprofit work or something like that. And, obviously you're going to make this amount of money. There's probably a cap. And there's people in there that, and I'm not saying don't go do that, but you could, if you do want to be successful monetarily, then go do it. But you can always go back and volunteer. You can
totally
give back, right?
Yeah.
To them, and probably have a huge impact as well. Just don't be cliche about it. Like you're just, I don't know if that's the right way to explain it.
No, I get it. I think like one time someone explained it to me. They're like, Sean, you have two options. You can lean into your passion, right? And you can go work for a nonprofit, or you can go after like another career that maybe isn't necessarily your passion, but you make great money and you can give back and create impact through giving back to the things that you're passionate about.
Yep.
Which that actually really resonated with me, which brings me to my next question for you is like, okay, so we've talked about like, being Olympian, like your work, like what are some of your other passions in life?
My passion right now?
You're a family man.
Yeah. I have 3 kids, we're going through the grind of that. So it's always fun. It's really hard work. I try at this point in my career, because I have the flexibility to, and that's also why you put in the hard work on the front end of your career, so that when you do have kids, you might have some flexibility to get home a little earlier. Not get home at 7 or 8. You can get home at 5 or something like that, or make the sports game or whatever it is. So we have that. That's kind of like the loving passion side, and then the selfish selfish side is I'm trying to learn to golf. That's one of my
you and I talked about
challenges over the past
How's that
year.
coming?
It's good, but
golf is like one of the most frustrating things for me, because I have friends, and I can't remember if I've talked about this, but like I have friends in my life that are scratch golfers. They're amazing. And then I get so frustrated with myself, and I know it's just like anything in life. You just need to it's all about the reps and practice, right?
Oh yeah.
But like there was a time in my life that I was pretty good at hitting a pretty fastball, right? Over 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And then I have this white ball that's sitting there, and I have no freaking idea where this thing is going to go. And most of the time it's not going in the direction I want it to. It's like, I'm hitting it left or right or whatever. So like that's something that I'm trying to lean into this year as well is
it's just a nice challenge, mental. It brings out your it teaches you patience. So that's my selfish passion currently.
I also heard something when I was on the golf course, and someone was like, Sean, you know what golf is? And I'm like, yeah, it's hitting a ball and putting it into a hole. They're like, no, that's not golf. Golf is in between what happens. Yeah. Like in between what happens when you're hitting the ball. It's actually like the walking, or like having the quality time with someone to really get to know them. It's taking in like the sunlight, looking at the beauty of what's around you. So I think when I thought about it through that lens of like looking at golf as a way to like walk with friends for a few hours and be outdoors, I'm like, okay, absolutely. I'll judge it that way. That seems like it's a much better way to walk.
I walk every time now, unless it's 1,000 degrees, but because I'm such a horrible golfer, like I wear my like.
Do you have a Whoop? Or your Apple Watch?
No, just some watch, like one of the Garmin's or something. And it'll tell me sometimes I walk about 10 miles. You're only supposed to, I think, walk 6 or so miles.
When you golf?
Oh
my gosh, you're walking 10 miles?
There's been times where
funny.
That means you're doing a
so you and I,
zigzag.
We haven't played golf together, but we probably are pretty similar. We're walking way more.
I've gone it down to 7-8 miles, but when I first started, I would look at it and be like, no wonder why my feet are so tired.
Yeah, that is funny. That is really, really funny. Okay, so you got the company, you got the family stuff with the 3 kids, wife, all of that, and then golf.
Yeah, and I think something else, I don't know if we're, going back to success really fast, stay busy. That's another thing. Keep yourself busy. There's some billionaire out there who once said, like, when I have a project that needs to be done, I give it to my most busiest person. They're going to get it done because I'm assuming because they created like the habits and stuff. I don't give it to the person in the office that's twiddling their thumbs or they're done with all their work at 4 p.m.
Yeah. No, totally.
So stay busy. Agree. It doesn't mean you're working, but it's, get the hobby, stay healthy, treat work like it's you're an athlete.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to perform unless your body's healthy, your relationships are healthy.
Yeah.
You're a team player.
Yeah.
You just won't.
Yeah, so it's so interesting that you bring this up, because I think we're pivoting in that, like, as a society, like within the working world, where you look at like a LeBron James who spends millions of dollars on their body, right? All these professional athletes, and you're like, well, I'm like as a professional, like I want to like lean into my career kind of the way these professional athletes do. And that comes down to your point, like eating right, sleeping right, exercising, like having great like relationships, because all that plays into the performance at work to a certain degree.
100%.
Yeah. And so like, you're right. Like I think of it as like, you need to make sure that, like, people call it balance, but you just need to make sure you have your priorities straight and you're keeping track of all of those things that actually like move the needle for you, because those other things in life, like having great relationships with people or like being in great shape, like it's actually, you're going to show up better at work.
100, yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Because when that stuff's not going well, like, I don't know about you, like when I've had injuries, you know, I'm like kind of down. I'm like, I'm in crutches, or like my back's hurting, or if like I'm in a little bit, I have some friction in my personal life for whatever reason. 100%. I'm not even totally present. I'm just like, that's in my subconscious, the back of, and you can see it like probably in my face to a certain degree, or like you can see it when people are like in a tough season. And so I love what you said about like staying busy, but like I don't know, like I don't, it's an interesting concept that I totally agree with.
And I count busy as, when I get home from work, I'm now busy with the kids doing that. And then when they go to sleep, I'm jumping back on my laptop, being busy or doing a night workout, whatever it is. I'm not sitting and playing video games and watching Netflix or something.
Well, that's actually one of the things and we didn't even get into this, but I just helped you get a space in Culver, which was another company that you're working on called Walk Your Plans.
Yeah, Walk Your Plans.
By the way, for those that you want to just really quick 30 seconds of what Walk Your Plans is.
Yeah, and I'm not the inventor. Another big thing. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I just saw a great opportunity to bring something to Los Angeles, which was a company that allows you to walk your like architectural plans or your design or blueprints before you do construction, or to give yourself confidence, or less change orders. And so it's a great tool for the end user if you're building your own house, your dream house or remodel or whatever it might be, or it's a great tool for architects and contractors to show their clients or pitch their clients to close the deal, but everybody be happy about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm big in building. We have a small arm that we do luxury home building that Dwight and I have. And we've all built something where I did not realize that closet was going to be so small, you know?
Well, so yes, this is much needed, especially with all the fires here in the Palisades. Like, people are going to be rebuilding their homes. So Walk Your Plans, it's like the state-of-the-art facility in Culver City. We just walked it right before we came here. It's amazing. But like, my point in bringing this up is like, this is just one of the many things in your life that we actually didn't touch on until like we're wrapping this up, which is like, to your point, like, stay busy. Like, you have like so many different things that you're doing. And when you and I were working together for the Walk Your Plans like warehouse, right? Like, I would call you and you're like, oh, I'm traveling here to go meet with investors, or I'm going to my kid's game. Like, you were just like, you're always doing something, always on the go, which I like appreciated. Like, you're hustling, you're getting things done.
Trying my best.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool, man. This has been awesome. Thank you so much for being on. I think we should end it with a quick little, let's pull up this Olympian here and what he used to look like.
I still look like that, by the way.
All right, for the audience, let's see what this stud used to look like. Go to images really quick. There he is.
I always go and work out.
That's the look, by the way, when you've been in the pool so much, is your hair color changes. Yeah. Yeah. What about this? What about the polo one with him in the Speedo? There we go. There we go.
So I always tell my wife, I go, I'm looking good now, right? Like the Olympic days. And she just laughs.
Look at that photo. The one in red, the far right. Oh, yeah. There we go. Wow. That guy was where was that? College?
Yeah, probably 2012 or so. No, a little outside of college.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's so great. That's cool. So anyone out there, I would say I'll do a little bit I'll pitch for you. If there's anyone that's trying to customize their home and wants to basically figure out like, okay, how big is this living room? Like, how big's the kitchen? Like, go check out Walk Your Plans in Culver City, which is an incredible facility that I helped you get. Yep. Go check that out. And then also, if there's anyone out there that wants to invest in commercial real estate, I'd highly recommend checking out K Properties.
Get K Properties Investment.
K Property Investment, and looking at your guys' portfolio to invest in.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for being on this. This was super fun.
Yep.
You're the man.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.